Hello, everyone. Thank you for your interest in the Connecticut Partnership for Long-Term Care program. My name is Aldo Piantano, and I work for the state's Office of Policy and Management, where we oversee this special program called the Connecticut Partnership for Long-Term Care. More than 60,000 people in Connecticut have purchased partnership policies. And in the next 40 minutes or so, I'll tell you everything that I can about the Connecticut Partnership and how it can help Connecticut residents protect their assets should we need long-term care due to a long-lasting disease or disability. Now I'm going to show the slides so that we can follow the presentation. We have a problem in Connecticut paying for long-term care and in the rest of the country as well. And that's especially because there are so many misunderstandings and misconceptions. Now, the first misunderstanding is around what long-term care is and what long-term care is not. If you fall down and break a leg, you end up in the hospital. You have doctors and nurses providing skilled care, X-rays, MRIs, CAT scans. The primary purpose is to help fix what's broken and send us home as quickly as possible. Long-term care, on the other hand, also known as custodial care, it is help with everyday activities such as eating, dressing, walking, bathing, going to the bathroom, transferring from bed to chair or from chair to wheelchair. Another way to need long-term care is because of a cognitive impairment such as Alzheimer's. The primary purpose of long-term care is to help maintain the individual's capabilities without suffering too much and trying to prevent from deteriorating quicker than without long-term care an individual would. Most of long-term care is provided at home. That's where we'd rather be. But then you also have settings such as adult daycare, assisted living, and the place where nobody wants to go, nursing homes. So long-term care has a lot of different options, and having a long-term care policy can help tremendously in keeping an individual at home as long as possible, and even avoiding the need for staying in a nursing home. Another misconception is the risk of needing long-term care. We may think that long-term care is just for old people, but unfortunately, it can hit at any age. You have many more situations where younger people are diagnosed with Alzheimer's at age 49. I know I have friends where this terrible condition has taken over, and it is a terrible situation and also extremely expensive. If we live to the age of 65, a little bit over 50% of us will need some level of long-term care. And women are especially at greater risk because women live longer, and the longer we live, the greater the chance of needing some type of long-term care. According to the Alzheimer's Association, every 65 seconds, an individual is diagnosed with Alzheimer's. That's about 500,000 people a year. So we need to find different solutions as far as how we can prepare ourselves to protect our assets, our freedom of choice and where we want to receive care, and long-term care policies can help tremendously in achieving these goals. Another misconception is the cost of long-term care. People have no idea how expensive it can be until it's too late. Especially in the Northeast, the cost of living is high, so the cost of care is also high as well. Connecticut is the second most expensive state in the country when it comes to the cost of long-term care. The average daily nursing facility cost is $444 a day, or close to over $161,000 a year. Now, as you can imagine, most of us would not be able to last too long if we have an expense yearly of 80, 100,000, 140,000, 160,000 for expenses that we didn't plan for or didn't think it would happen to us. So what you can see here is keeping in mind that many states throughout the country, the cost of living is less, so the cost of care is also less. In some places, they may be paying $250, $300 a day for their nursing home, but the Northeast overall is very expensive. Alaska, it's over $900 a day or $350,000 a year. So don't move to Alaska if you're planning on needing long-term care. And then you have Hawaii, that is also very expensive. And again, the Northeast. Now, I would like to point out here that since 1988, we keep track of inflation, and the average has been at 4.8%. The good news is that over the last 8 years, and we keep track by doing a survey of nursing homes and home care providers, the true cost of increases of long-term care has been close to under 2%. It's gradually increasing a little bit, and obviously we don't know where the cost of care will be tomorrow, 5, 10, 20 years from now. But based on the last 28 years or so, someone who had inflation protection at 5% or close to it has been in a pretty good shape where their policies that had such inflation protection kept up with the true cost of care. If long-term care is so expensive, who's been paying for it? So based on this slide, we see that about 22% has been paid out of pocket. This is where people pay for long-term care and eventually become poor because they're investing their income and their assets. And then you have over 10 million people with private insurance throughout the country that have purchased policies to protect themselves against the expenses associated with long-term care. And then we have Medicaid here that pays the majority of long-term care throughout the country at over 60%. However, in order to qualify for Medicaid, you first have to spend down your assets in Connecticut, for example, as a single person to $1,600. And then you're allowed to keep out of your income $60 a month or 60 plus 90 if you're a wartime veteran. Now, if you're married, the state doesn't want the community spouse to become poor. Therefore, the community spouse living at home, he or she gets to protect the house and the car, regardless of value. Then up to 50% of their other assets, but no more than $128,640. Then everything else has to be spent down to $1,600. Shortly, I will tell you how the partnership program can help us protect a lot more of our assets in addition to what the standard Medicaid protections are. Please notice that here we don't even include Medicare. And because that's a big misconception, everybody thinks, oh, Medicare will pay for it, somebody will pay, the health plan will pay for it. But reality is different. On average, Medicare pays about 25 days in a nursing home, or the most it will pay is 100 days. The average length of stays in nursing homes is about 2.3 years. Therefore, Medicare, when it pays, is not really paying for much. In the first 20 days, they pay in full. Day 21 through 100, you have a deductible that is close to over $170 a day you have to pay. If you need help with just activities of daily living, such as bathing, continence, dressing, eating, toileting, transferring. Medicare will not pay for it. If you need care 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, Medicare won't pay for it. If you need long-term care because of a cognitive impairment, such as Alzheimer's, Medicare won't pay for it. So when does Medicare pay? Medicare is very restrictive and selective on when it pays because it was not designed to help pay for long-term care. So if you break a hip, you end up in the hospital. You have a doctor's or nurse providing care, and then you need to be in the hospital at least 3 days without counting the day of discharge. Then if you need long-term care after that, maybe 2 weeks, 4 weeks, Medicare will pay for it. But again, it turns away many people because it is not designed to pay for long-term care. Now, why do we think about long-term care insurance? Well, obviously, the risk does not go away. It is part of life. As we get older, chances are we'll need some help in some areas. Also, unfortunately, you have car accidents, sports injuries, long-lasting disease or disability. You throw in there MS, Parkinson's, severe depression. You just don't know when somebody may need long-term care. And we want to think about long-term care because the cost is extremely high and we don't foresee any public solution anytime soon. So we individually have to think about long-term care and take responsibility to protect ourselves and our assets should we need long-term care in the future. As I mentioned, Medicare, health insurance, the Affordable Care Act do not pay for long-term care. And with Medicaid, unfortunately, money is not unlimited. So Medicaid looks to the individual and the family to share some of the expenses when someone applies to Medicaid, and you have to be poor, meet the eligibility rules before we qualify. And another reason why we think of long-term care insurance is especially because of this special program called the Connecticut Partnership for Long-Term Care. Now, I would like to take a moment here to point out that Connecticut was very innovative and proactive back in 1992 by introducing the first partnership program in the country. And then other states also started to offer partnership programs. And today, we're very glad to see that there are 45 states that offer partnership programs. And the 5 states that don't offer partnership programs are Hawaii and Alaska, Mississippi, Vermont, and Massachusetts. And I'll talk about that a little bit later as we go along here. Now, we didn't want to go there. We're here. The partnership program was established with 4 goals, which are still true today. First is to help us Connecticut residents to have a better way to plan for long-term care without the risk or fear of becoming impoverished. So that's the key behind the partnership, is to help us Connecticut residents a better way to address long-term care and give us options to better protect our assets and a guarantee that we will not run out of assets if we purchase a partnership policy. Another goal is to have the state of Connecticut, back in 1992, when we were entering into a partnership with insurance companies, thanks to a grant from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. That's how the partnership was created. We wanted to make sure that in order for insurance companies to participate with the partnership, they must raise their standards. They must meet the requirements that only partnership policies have. and I'll explain how those work. Another goal is to educate the public as much as possible. We have been seeing over 1,000 people throughout the state with presentations in libraries, Rotary clubs, associations, and so on. Obviously, these days we'll be doing as much education as we can, as we're doing now, online, which also makes it very convenient for you to watch it from the comfort of your own home anytime you wish to do so. Now, the last goal, to conserve state Medicaid funds. Since 1992, there's a formula in place that shows that thanks to the partnership, the Connecticut Medicaid program has saved more than $55 million. And that's because as more and more people buy insurance, then you have less people that have to invest all their assets to become poor and pay for long-term care. So the partnership offers a solution, an alternative to investing your assets to paying for care. How does asset protection work? This is an important concept right here, and in the next 3-4 slides, I would like to spend as much time as I can so that you have a better understanding of why the partnership program has certain powerful and very beneficial provisions that you can only find in the partnership program. When we buy a partnership policy, we're buying it from an insurance agent just like we buy any other insurance policy. Nothing is different there, except that the partnership has better value and better protection. Every insurance policy with the partnership also gets what's called a Medicaid asset protection account. This account has nothing to do with the insurance company. It's something the state is doing for us. We're taking responsibilities to prepare for long-term care in the future. How does it work? Medicaid asset protection account starts out at a value of 0, and it will continue to stay there until the insurance policy begins to pay insurance benefits. Then it works like, for example, a frequent flyer program. When you fly with an airline company and you have a frequent flyer program there, every time you fly, you earn miles based on how much distance you're going. Then after a certain amount of miles, $25,000, $30,000 or so, maybe you get lucky and you get a free trip somewhere. So the more miles you travel, the more miles you earn. With the partnership, you are not earning miles, but what you are earning is the right to protect a greater amount of your assets should you need long-term care in the future. And the way it works is that once you apply to the insurance company for a claim and they approve, every time the insurance company pays $1 of insurance benefits, you get the equivalent of $1 value in your Medicaid asset protection account. So this is not a savings account. There's no cash to put in or put out. But the more the policy pays, the more insurance, Medicaid asset protection you have. So if the policy pays $10,000 after 1 month, you have $10,000 of Medicaid asset protection. $50,000 paid by the policy, you have $50,000 of Medicaid asset protection. $100,000 paid by the policy, you have $100,000 of Medicaid asset protection. So what does this mean? Well, as we can read here in the next bullet, the Department of Social Services will review claims for Medicaid and they pay claims once an individual is deemed eligible. So when determining eligibility, the Department of Social Services will disregard any assets that you have up to the amount that the partnership policy is paid in benefits. So basically this is saying when we apply to Medicaid, The more the insurance policy is paid out, the more assets we can protect, in addition to the standard protections that we all have. What we're going to do next is we're going to go through a number of examples. I'm giving you a lot of information, so sometimes it's difficult to digest everything all at once. But the beauty of having this video is that you can go back and forth, pause it, write down numbers, listen to the concept over and over again until you're very comfortable. And you can always call us should you have any questions. We're there to help as much as we can. And we help many people in Connecticut and also outside of Connecticut, because sometimes people move in and out of the state. So I just wanted to point that out. Now we're going to go through the slide here where we have 4 examples. You have 4 people on the left-hand side column. Then you have assets as the next column that each individual has. The third column is how much insurance benefits have been paid through the partnership or not, as in the last example, person D. And then you have countable assets, how Medicaid determines the financial situation for each individual. Now, Alice, Bob, Cindy, and Dave, those are the 4 people we have here. Alice is based on a true example. Grandmother had $100,000 in assets. She had heard about the partnership, and in her mind, she did not want to do anything creative, hiring a lawyer and camouflaging assets, which is legal, set up a trust, different ways to protect assets, taking chances as well, because nothing sometimes is guaranteed. The insurance agent, who was certified to sell partnership policies, explains to Alice that if you want to protect $100,000, you must first purchase a policy that pays at least $100,000. Now, these examples here are for all single individuals to keep things a little bit simpler. And so they're all going to be allowed to spend down assets to $1,600 if they have to. And let me show you how it works. Alice buys the $100,000 policy. Unfortunately, 2 years later, she develops Alzheimer's, files a claim with the insurance company, begins to receive insurance payments. Since it was some time ago, it took about 1.5 years before she ran out of insurance benefits, and the policy paid a total of $100,000. She ran out of insurance, applies to Medicaid. Medicaid first says, Alice, you're single. You have $100,000 in assets. You got to spend it down to $1,600. However, Alice submitted a copy of the quarterly Medicaid asset protection report, which is required by state law to be mailed by the insurance company to the claimant and the family, and also send a copy to us at the Office of Policy and Management to make sure these reports are being mailed out. Once Medicaid sees and confirms that Alice has earned the right to protect $100,000, then the formula changes dramatically. Medicaid says, Alice, you have $100,000 in assets. Your policy paid $100,000. Therefore, from Medicaid's perspective, she has 0 countable assets, even though honestly she still has $100,000. At this point, the protected assets can be handled in many different ways, only by Alice. Alice decides to transfer $100,000 to her daughter to help pay for the grandchildren's education and other expenses. And then she went on for 4 more years, needing long-term care through Medicaid, and then passed away. But this is a perfect example of how someone can buy a smaller type of policy at $100,000 and can go a long way in protecting an individual's assets. Which would you prefer as a single person? To be on Medicaid with $1,600, or would you rather have $100,000 in your hands that you can spend slowly, buy pizza and drinks for everybody in the nursing home on Friday nights, keep everybody happy. Or you can give a portion away right away, or you can give it all away, or you can keep it. Medicaid will not tell you what to do with the protected assets. Bob here is similar example, except Bob worked 2 jobs and managed to have extra assets, $200,000, buys a policy from a certified agent worth $200,000. And again, I'm not including inflation protection in these examples to keep it simpler. 10 years later, Bob files a claim with the insurance company. After a year and a half, $200,000 has been paid by the insurance policy, and Bob has $200,000 of Medicaid asset protection. He runs out of insurance, files with Medicaid. Medicaid says, Bob, you have $200,000 in assets, you're single. However, you have $200,000 in Medicaid asset protection. Then Medicaid sees the situation for Bob as he has 0 countable assets. Now, every year at renewal, Medicaid will look at the financial situation again for Bob and the others. If Bob has kept $200,000 in his name and there's no change, then no action necessary. If $200,000 is still under Bob's name and it increases to $210,000, then the difference between $200,000 and $210,000 must be spent towards Bob's care. If Bob has transferred $200,000 to a friend, a neighbor, a companion, a spouse, anyone, a religious organization, then Medicaid will see that $200,000 is no longer listed under Bob's name and no further action will be taken because Bob or Alice or others, protected assets, just as it states, protected. We can do whatever we wish with those assets. Medicaid will not dictate how those assets should be spent down as long as they are protected assets. Now, Cindy here is an example of the equity of the program. She's done very well. She has set aside $1 million, meets with an insurance agent, and the agent certified to sell partnership policies explains, Cindy, if you wish to protect $1 million, you must buy a policy that pays $1 million. Now, you can flat out buy a $1 million policy, or you could buy a $500,000 partnership policy with 5% compounded automatic inflation protection. $1 million, when you have $500,000 with 5% compounded each year, it continues to grow until 14 years later, it has doubled in value. So a policy initially worth $500,000, 14 years later, will be worth $1 million. However, in this situation, Cindy decides to buy $200,000. That's what she was comfortable with. And unfortunately for her, 15 years later, she needs long-term care. If the policy at the time only paid $200,000, obviously it would grow with some type of inflation protection. But let's just say that her policy pays $200,000. She applies to Medicaid. The difference is $800,000. Medicaid says for countable assets of $800,000, you must spend it down to $1,600 before she would be eligible for Medicaid. David here is an example of someone who says, que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. I may have heard that somewhere. Basically, he decides not to take any action, as many people do, and that's a choice. Or, unfortunately, David had never heard about the partnership program. So he meets with an agent who is not certified to sell partnership policies. And the agent sells David a non-partnership policy that pays $200,000. 5 years later, he files a claim with the insurance company. The insurance company pays $200,000 from the non-partnership policy. Therefore, because it's non-partnership, David has zero Medicaid asset protection. When he applies to Medicaid, Medicaid says, David, you have $200,000 in assets. You need to spend it down to $1,600 in order to qualify for Medicaid. I'd like to point out that Medicaid asset protection is free. The insurance company has nothing to do with this except some reports they need to submit. Medicaid asset protection is done for us, offered by the state of Connecticut to give us more incentive to consider long-term care insurance, especially through the partnership. The only way you can get Medicaid asset protection. And if you were to compare a policy issued by an insurance company that sells both partnership and non-partnership policies, as long as you're comparing apples to apples, the premium will be 100% the same. So when someone may say, well, the partnership is more expensive, unfortunately, they're giving you incorrect information, because if you compare a very rich policy to an inferior policy, obviously richer coverage, more comprehensive coverage will cost less than something inferior. Another point here about Medicaid asset protection is that the state of Connecticut is required to try to recover those assets based on how much the state paid for the individual's long-term care in a nursing home after the individual dies. However, if those assets were protected through the partnership Medicaid asset protection, then the state will not go and recover for Medicaid those assets. Right, so sometimes people move to other states because of family reasons, because of business reasons, because they possibly wanted to be in 90 degrees temperature with a lot of humidity throughout the year. But kidding aside, some people may move the state. If we look at statistics, we are, based on age, one of the 6th oldest state in the country. Many people don't live here. We have a beautiful state and may not realize all the advantages and services that we have here until we move somewhere else. So what happens when somebody moves? Well, we won't allow them to come back to Connecticut anymore. Okay, so kidding aside, you must be a Connecticut resident with a bona fide address when you purchase a partnership policy. That does not mean that you will vote here or pay taxes here or stay forever. You could be here 3 weeks, 2 weeks out of the year and live somewhere else. That does not matter. What's most important is that on the application, you first provide a bona fide address when you first apply. So it cannot be a work address. It cannot be a P.O. box. It would be hard to prove somebody lives there. But provide a bona fide address, and then nobody is checking up on you if you're moving somewhere else. And it is important to remember that partnership policies pay based on the contract that you have with the insurance company anywhere in the country. So anywhere you move, if unfortunately someday you need long-term care and you qualify for insurance benefits, the insurance policy will pay wherever you are. If it's important to you to know about the Commonwealth Territory, Guam, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, you may want to ask the insurance company Sometimes they include coverage automatically. Sometimes they may require a rider for international coverage. So ask if that is important to you. And keep in mind that sometimes when you buy an international rider, benefits may be very limited. So it's important for you to understand what you're getting. So what happens when we move out of the state? We have a reciprocity compact. Excuse me. I'm gonna drink some water here. In January of 2009, the federal government came out with a reciprocity compact stating that all the new states, and there were 41 of them at that time, were automatically part of the reciprocity compact. No state has opted out. The 4 first states that offer partnership programs were Connecticut, Indiana, New York, and California. We were not part automatically of the reciprocity compact. We had to apply. And the state of Connecticut is very much strongly in favor of reciprocity. So we applied, we're part of it. Out of the 45 states that have partnership programs, 44 have reciprocity with each other. The only state that does not have reciprocity is the state of California, excuse me, which we feel that hurts California residents, because if they move out, let's say 20 years go by, they live in Montana, Nevada, Connecticut, Florida, anywhere in the country. If they need to take advantage of Medicaid asset protection and California continues not to have reciprocity, then these poor people have to move back to California and take advantage of Medicaid asset protection there. So this is the way reciprocity works. And keep in mind one thing, reciprocity is important to understand and know how it is today. But the most important time for reciprocity is down the road at a time when, unfortunately, we needed care wherever we lived outside of Connecticut, and we ran out of insurance, and then we need to apply to that state's Medicaid program. How does it work? Now, let's say I moved to Florida and I've lived there 10 years. 10 years later, I have a Connecticut Partnership for Long-Term Care policy. I file a claim with the insurance company. Benefits are paid. All right, so I'm earning Medicaid asset protection. And let's say that I've run out of insurance benefits and my policy has paid out $250,000. I applied to Florida's Medicaid program. Let's say Florida and Connecticut have reciprocity with each other. Then the state of Florida Medicaid program will recognize the $250,000 I earned through the Connecticut Partnership policy, and I will be able to protect $250,000 in addition to whatever, excuse me, Medicaid asset protection is available at that time through Medicaid. That's true for any state who has reciprocity with each other, and again, 44 states reciprocity with each other. Now, the federal government has the right to allow someone, let me state a different way. States have the right to opt out of the compact by sending the federal government a letter 60 days in advance to wanting to make that change. So tomorrow, 5, 10, 20 years from now, we don't know what the reciprocity picture looks like, will look like. To date, no state has opted out of reciprocity. We think it's a huge advantage for people to be able to live anywhere they wish to live and to take advantage of their partnership policies. And therefore, we strongly support reciprocity. Reciprocity, as stated here, will be most important when applying to Medicaid at that time. So I wouldn't worry so much today to say, well, this state does not have a partnership program, or this state does not have reciprocity. We simply don't know how things may change in the future, but it's great to know that we have this type of protections. Okay, so you may ask, if I am interested in learning more, how do I go through getting a quote? Right, so the marketplace evolves, things change over time, and we have had from the beginning until today a total of 25 insurance companies that have sold partnership policies. Obviously, we can't control the insurance companies. They do things based on their business, their strategies. And we used to have 3 initially, then 5, 4, 7, 6. It changes over time. Today, the three insurance companies that sell partnership policies are Bankers Life and Casualty, Genworth, and also Transamerica Life. These 3 insurance companies offer partnership policies, and you can go about it different ways. For example, you can link in to their website, look for long-term care, and select to have someone contact you. Make sure you are specific, that you say you want someone who is certified to sell partnership policies. Otherwise, they'll send you anybody and they'll sell you something that you maybe didn't really want to begin with. And don't be afraid to ask to give you different quotes. So for example, we choose a pool of money, or also called lifetime maximum. Could be 200,000, 150,000, 300,000, whatever you think is best for you. And we also choose a daily benefit amount. If possible, we strongly suggest to start out with a higher daily benefit, something close to the $444, which is the average for nursing homes. However, keep in mind, somebody receiving care at home, they may not incur as many expenses. So when you buy $450 daily benefit and you're spending $200 a day for home care, or $300, you're not losing the extra dollar value. It's staying in your pool of money. Therefore, something labeled that could last 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, in reality, it may last much longer, because it depends on how much you're spending every day through the insurance benefits. So please contact any of these 3, or call one of the insurance agents you do a lot of business with and see if they can recommend somebody. You can look up brokers online. You need to do a little bit of research. We can't pinpoint 1, 2, 5 individuals, because otherwise everyone will go there, and then it would not be fair to the other people who are marketing these products. Now, there are some services available free through the state on our website, which is listed below here, ctpartnership.org. Select consumer, and you will see a wealth of state publications to help you better understand how the partnership works, how government programs work, things you need to ask yourself before buying a policy. And then you can always call us if you have any questions, or to request a packet of the partnership publications. But again, you can download and print everything on your own if you like. All right, so in closing here, it's very important to point out that the partnership programs, the partnership program helps us to better protect our assets, and it gives us a better approach. Instead of trying to figure out how much care do I need, we can sit back and say, how much assets do we wish to protect? And then we can get quotes based on different variations to see what we are most comfortable with. Stay well, everybody. Thanks again for your attention. And if anything, please let us know. Take care.